Hello, so let's talk about the government shutdown. So, the United States federal government is officially shut down, or at least it's about to officially shut down, because naturally, what happens, at least here in the US, is if they can't pass a spending bill, well, the government shuts down, because they don't have a budget for the next year, quote unquote. Because technically the Fed, it's the Federal Reserve, that is short for, they can just freely print as much money as they want and inflate not just the US's economy, but the world economy at large. And that's, of course, not a good thing because we're talking inflation inflating. So that's always fun. And of course, if anybody else did the same thing, you see, it has no value and it's a capital crime. But of course, the government can just print as much free money as it wants to and immediately apply value to it because they fucking said so. So that's great to start off. But nevertheless, they don't have a budget, so they do not have the money, even though they could print it. Now, the thing is a lot of people, it's kind of pretty much split down the middle, and I've never seen it so split before, but a lot of people are either extremely in favor of this and see it as a good thing, and a lot of people see it as the worst case scenario and a terrible thing and something that should never have happened. Basically, in other words, those people, the latter group, pretty much wanted a spending bill passed no matter what was in it. They just think you should blindly pass bills. Government employees, federal employees, still have to work. Not all of them. I remember this explicitly. The last time, I think it was last time, is it the last time or it was during Obama's last term in office, there was a government shutdown and it lasted for, I think, around 2.5 months, and federal agencies, each of the workers that they had, they quickly dwindled them down to like the bare minimum that they felt they needed to have function, including at the IRS. And after they reinstated the government, of course, naturally, like any employer, they didn't want to reemploy any of the people that they had to let go, or they claimed they had to let go of. And so as a result, there was a crisis at the IRS where there was just not enough agents. There was not enough people to go and ream and cream us for our money that we've worked our asses off to earn, because it's technically legalized theft. That's a different story. So that's always fun. And then on top of that, the USPS, the United States Postal Service, had its crisis immediately thereafter as well, because they went down to the bare minimum, quote unquote, whatever the heck they actually deemed as the bare minimum necessary to function. And they had near bankruptcy, and they had all this other problems, and they just didn't have enough people, and I think they had too many problems with their older vehicles, and they had problems therefore acquiring the new fleets and with training. And here's why I think that it's more a positive than a negative, and that is besides the obvious part, which is that the budget deficit is, well, anywhere between like $37 trillion and hundreds of trillions of dollars in debt, depending on who you ask and what sources you look at. Because obviously the government's going to try to make it look as good as possible on themselves and pretend that, oh, it's the lowest possible amount. Obviously, because we gotta appear like we actually do something about it. No, you don't. So I guarantee it's actually in the hundreds of trillions of dollars in debt at this point. I actually see it as a net benefit. And the reason why is because of how rushed and sudden every single spending bill that we end up in a shutdown for is. The last couple of times that the government has shut down under a president is quite literally because of the fact that nobody saw the bill. Nobody was able to read through the damn thing because they always conveniently try to push it through at the last possible second, to where sometimes there was a handful of fucking senators and congresspeople that didn't even have access to the fucking bills. They never got to see a single page of it because they just didn't have them on their desk because they couldn't print them in time, and or they just refused to hand them out because it was so close to the deadline to pass a budget. And so naturally they shut down, which is what I sincerely believe is a benefit, as aka is why it should have happened. And thus I'm kind of happy it did happen. It's better to not pass something when you have no idea what the fuck it's really about or what the hell is even in it. The spending bill this time around was almost, I think it was almost 1,600, so almost 1,600, or almost 1,000 like 700 pages long, which is not okay. Like, you know, they're trying to hide and bury as much shit as they possibly can in that shit, in that thing, way below the surface, somewhere in the middle, so that hopefully you won't pay attention or you'll skim past it, or that is if you try to read through it. And if you don't, well, that's even better, because that's the main goal is they don't want people to look at it. They want people to be so exhausted knowing how many pages there are, knowing they don't have the time, and saying fuck that, and just saying either go with it or don't. And a lot of everyday citizens here in this country, of course, naturally are apathetic, and they're also kind of arrogant. So, of course, naturally, a lot of them are saying they should have just passed it anyway. Even though that's likely to guarantee massive negative effects on us, they still don't give a fuck because they're just sick and tired of it by default because of how many pages it is. It's the wrong move to do that. And then on top of that, then of course, last second, this morning, which is the 20th of December, the Trump admin, even though of course they aren't officially in office until January 20th, so I think literally a month from today, I believe it is, they, yeah, it's January 20th, so exactly a month from today, they actually managed, like, supposedly they give full credit to Trump. I don't know who in his admin or who associated with him were the ones to draft this. But basically, they whittled it down all the way to 116 pages, which in itself is almost scary because it's like, okay, so it went from almost 2,000 pages to barely 100 pages. And so quick, like, oh, literally overnight. So, what kind of fuckery is happening here? You know? I don't know about that either. But 116 pages, and but because it was this morning and the deadline is literally today, that was also rejected off the bat because naturally you still can't read it. In fact, they can't get the fucking papers on your desk because it's a new one technically. So now that to reprint it, you don't have the time for that. So nobody has the ability to read through the 116 pages of the bill. And even if you did, you still can't read through 116 pages in one day by the deadline. But I just wanted to point this out and mention it. I'm not going to try to go into like extreme detail or something. I just wanted to point out why I think it's actually more of a benefit than a negative. Oh, again, I guess benefit's a really bad word for it, but like more like it's the right maneuver to pull in any instance. Obviously, I'm sure by now a lot of you probably understand how I really feel about government and politics and politicians, which is that I don't trust a damn politician. I don't trust any government ever, and they're only out for themselves. So naturally, why the fuck would I participate in politics either? So, you know, by now I'm sure a lot of you understand that. For anybody new, obviously, you wouldn't know that, but now you do. Yeah, I'm just not somebody who pays attention to that shit or gives a fuck. Because I don't want to participate in a puppet show as if I somehow believe in this make-believe world where our voice or our votes even count for shit, let alone that it's not even rigged. The system's functioning exactly as intended. I agree with George Carlin on every single point that he makes about that, except for the fact that it's rigged. It is not rigged. The game cannot be rigged if the game is functioning as intended. And this game is functioning exactly as it was intended. Everything that happens to us, everything that happens in the government, everything that they do is literally by design. It is exactly going to a T, exactly how they intended it to, how they wanted it to, how they planned it out. It's not rigged. It was built to be against us. That's a fact. But I digress. So yeah, I point that out because obviously I feel like a lot of times people might assume that that means that I was like, oh, so you have a bias or you think like, oh, so they're doing the right thing because they care. No, of course not. I'm not dumb enough to believe that they give a fuck about any of us. I know they don't. That's obvious. So no, it's just not how that works. So I just wanted to throw that out there because obviously there's that caveat there to me. I don't think they did it for their own benefit. I just think they did it somehow for their own benefit, and I don't know what that would be. Probably, again, trying to control the budget to be in their favor, whichever the party they belong to, even though they're technically two wings of the same bird, two sides of the same coin. They're literally the same people with the same interests, just with a different fucking coat of paint. They're, yeah. I don't know what their angle is, but it's a bit weird. But admittedly, there is a chance, in fact, not a chance, sorry, there is a guarantee that if this goes through the end of this month, and I'm sure it will, I won't be getting food stamps. Anybody on food stamps ain't gonna get jack shit. Anybody on Social Security probably ain't gonna get in fact, no, not probably. I think they won't get anything. I'm pretty sure. Maybe they will get something, but I highly doubt it because even federal employees, like I said earlier, are not paid during a government shutdown. They get back pays. So, well, in theory, that is if the government decides to even pay them in the first place, or they aren't fired during it to get down to the bare minimum if it lasts long enough. But yeah, eh, yeah. I'm pretty sure that that means that, yeah, people like on food stamps won't get food stamps until the government's reinstated and the budget's agreed upon. I don't know how that screws with healthcare. I hope it doesn't screw it up or fuck with it too much, because then I may be screwed there too. Um, in fact, I know a lot of people that would be personally screwed on both fronts. It's not a fun time, but at the same time, is it long term probably the smarter, better option to have shut down the government and screw us over in the meantime? I would argue technically yes. Probably yeah. Because you don't want to fuck with a 1,000+ page bill and not know every single thing, word for word, punctuation mark for punctuation mark, what is in that thing and what your intentions are. Let alone, you don't want to have to pretend that you can safely force through even a 100-page bill, 116 in this case, without the ability to read through it all because you just don't have the time. That's coercion and strong arming of the worst, most nefarious degree. So, like I said, ultimately, I think it's actually a benefit, or not a benefit. Again, wrong word, but like it's the right choice to have made, rather than just be like, yeah, let's pass it blindly anyway. But I digress. But that's my 2 cents that nobody gives a fuck about, nobody asked for on the topic.